Signore e signori, buongiorno, benvenuti alla 78esima Mostra Internazionale d'Arte Cinematografica di Venezia e benvenuti alla conferenza stampa questa mattina di uno dei film che presentiamo nel fuori concorso della mostra. Si tratta del film TRANCHÉES o Trincee di Le Bureau. Oggi per la conferenza stampa qui con me ci sono la produttrice Carolina Taff e accogliamo anche ovviamente il regista Le Bureau. Come di consueto, la conferenza stampa è un momento per i giornalisti per poter partecipare alla conversazione con il regista e con la produttrice, quindi se ci sono domande potete tranquillamente farle in italiano, francese e inglese, potete alzare la mano e vi sarà data l'opportunità di partecipare a questo dialogo con i filmmaker. Vorrei cominciare la conversazione chiedendo al regista, a Lu, come ha cominciato ad interessarsi alla questione del conflitto in Ucraina a livello generale. Lui viene da un background di giornalismo e quindi vorrei innanzitutto cominciare a parlare del tema più allargato del film.
Alors j'ai commencé à couvrir la guerre en Ukraine en 2014 avec la révolution d'Euromaïdan et j'ai commencé aussi après, suite à la révolution, à couvrir la guerre qui a débuté à ce moment-là. Et en fait, j'ai beaucoup de gens que j'avais rencontrés sur place, de jeunes Ukrainiens, de jeunes Européens qui en fait par la suite se sont engagés dans l'armée pour faire la guerre. Et c'était des gens qui avaient souvent mon âge, avec qui j'étais culturellement très proche. Et c'est quelque chose qui m'a beaucoup choqué et ému de voir qu'au XXIe siècle, de jeunes Européens continuaient aujourd'hui à faire la guerre. Donc je les ai suivis. J'ai passé beaucoup de temps sur cette zone de front dans l'est de l'Ukraine. Et par la suite, à un moment donné, je me suis rendu compte en fait que peut-être qu'aucun des reportages que je faisais ne pouvait raconter cette histoire de la manière dont je voulais la raconter, qu'il fallait que je change de prisme, qu'il fallait que je change de perspective. Et je me suis rendu compte qu'il fallait que je prenne le temps de rencontrer les gens, de faire quelque chose de différent. Et c'est à ce moment-là que je me suis tourné vers le cinéma, qui à mon avis est le meilleur support, le meilleur art en fait pour raconter la vie des gens et raconter des histoires.
Volevo ritornare proprio su questo punto, e cioè la scelta da parte di Lu di non raccontare queste storie, queste persone, questi luoghi tramite quello che era il linguaggio a lui più familiare, cioè quello del reportage, ma attraverso il cinema. C'è stato un momento in particolare, c'è stata qualche precisa scintilla che ha portato a decidere di cambiare e di rivolgersi a questo tipo di linguaggio, e come hai affrontato questo passaggio all'idea di trasformare questo racconto in un racconto cinematografico, in termini di come hai lavorato sul luogo, sulla scena di questo racconto? Grazie.
Je pense que c'est l'environnement, tout d'abord, les tranchées. C'est la seule guerre de tranchées actuellement dans le monde. C'est la seule guerre qui a lieu actuellement en Europe. C'est la dernière guerre en Europe. Et le fait que les tranchées soient un environnement si spécial, si spécifique, m'a poussé en fait à utiliser de nouvelles formes d'approche narrative. Donc c'est pour ça que le film est tourné en noir et blanc, en 4/3, parce que je voulais que tout ça se retranscrive dans l'aspect cinématographique de l'œuvre. Et le noir et blanc avait cette capacité d'abord donner une esthétique très picturale et puis ensuite de faire référence à ce que moi j'avais des guerres de tranchées, donc en tant qu'Européen de la Première Guerre mondiale. Et donc voilà, le noir et blanc trouvait une justification dans les choix artistiques que je voulais prendre. Et puis il y a aussi l'aspect, le ratio, ce qu'on appelle le ratio de l'image, le 4/3, qui en fait avait cette particularité de pouvoir en fait mieux retranscrire l'environnement de manière générale, notamment la promiscuité, la léthargie, le fait que les tranchées soient un environnement très restreint, très petit. Et voilà, donc du coup, tous ces choix artistiques directs, en fait, qui sont des choix énormes, parce que tout a été tourné directement dans ce format-là, ont fait que je me suis directement... j'ai pris la direction du cinéma. Ça aurait été impossible de faire ça dans un cadre journalistique.
Faccio una domanda a Caroline, la produttrice, per chiederle come è venuta a conoscenza di questo progetto di Lou e come ha deciso di inquadrarlo e presentarlo all'ambiente produttivo francese come progetto che è stato concepito da un giornalista ma che si vuole cinematografico.
Quand Lou est venu me voir, en fait, il est venu me voir avec des images qu'il avait filmées. Et c'est vrai que sur la base de ces images de repérage qu'il avait fait, puisqu'il, comme il vous l'a dit, il a fait beaucoup en fait d'allers-retours en Ukraine, à Kiev, dans les tranchées. Et ben, en fait, j'ai tout de suite vu un cinéaste. C'est-à-dire que ça n'arrive pas souvent. Et quand on voit ça, tout de suite, on reconnaît en fait que la personne a un regard, une certaine manière de mettre en scène, alors même que c'est du documentaire, alors même que ce sont des images de repérage. Et ça, c'est quelque chose qui, moi, en tant que productrice, me marque quand je le vois, parce que c'est très rare. Ça n'arrive pas souvent. Et en France, on est très chanceux parce qu'on a l'avance sur recette du CNC, qui est une aide qui permet justement de financer des documentaires en langue étrangère par des producteurs français. Donc c'est grâce, en fait, comme on a eu l'avance sur recette, Lou a pu tourner.
Vous avez beaucoup de chance en France, toujours. C'è già una domanda qui in prima fila, prego signora, grazie. Ci dica prima chi è la testata, grazie.
Se mi permettete parlerò italiano, sono giornalista dell'agenzia stampa russa TASS. Ho guardato il film ieri con tanto interesse, insomma, perché comunque racconta la realtà davvero semi-nascosta, diciamo, però io sono molto curiosa di sapere più di questi eroi di questo film. Chi sono esattamente, se dall'armata o da quei battaglioni che combattono, insomma, ucraini, insomma, anche naturalmente noti anche qui in Italia pure un processo. La seconda cosa, chi sono questi personaggi che mi ha colpito, che tutti i personaggi principali parlavano russo meglio di me. Insomma, era un russo, soprattutto quel personaggio grosso, grande, un uomo che parlava anche un linguaggio fornito, nonostante tutti i parolacci, ma comunque di un certo livello. Mi sono incuriosita a queste cose e dopo, se hai seguito molto anche come noi giornalisti la situazione, sei mai stato dall'altra parte della trancea? Grazie.
Credo siano 3 domande in realtà, magari lascio a Lou districarsi tra le 3.
Alors la première réponse concernant qui sont ces personnages, ils font tous partie de l'armée régulière. Il n'y a aucun bataillon dans ce film, il s'agit vraiment de l'armée ukrainienne, donc nationale, qui sont des gens qui ont été engagés, qui ont pris des contrats dans l'armée comme on peut les prendre dans nos démocraties européennes, voilà, n'importe quel pays. Et après, pour ce qui est de la langue, forcément, l'Ukraine est partagée entre le russe et l'ukrainien. Une partie de l'Ukraine parle l'ukrainien, l'autre parle russe. Donc, effectivement, ces personnages, notamment le barbu, comme vous dites, lui vient de l'Est de l'Ukraine. Donc, il parle effectivement beaucoup mieux russe qu'ukrainien. Mais la question de la langue est finalement pas si importante dans le film parce que tous, en fait, parlent ukrainien et russe et tous se comprennent. Et parfois, certaines questions sont posées en ukrainien, un autre personnage va répondre en russe. Voilà, c'est un pays qui est bilingue. Quasiment l'entièreté de la population parle ces 2 langues. Donc voilà, en tout cas, moi, j'ai pas fait attention à la question de la langue sur place. Et voilà, pour ce qui est de la rencontre avec ces soldats, c'est quelque chose qui a pris du temps parce qu'en fait, quand on filme la guerre, quand on filme des soldats, il y a quelque chose qui touche directement à quelque chose d'existentiel, parce que ces soldats font face à la mort, et dans toutes les situations dans lesquelles on est confronté à la mort, on se posait effectivement beaucoup de questionnements existentiels. Donc ça a pris du temps, il a fallu que je reste beaucoup de temps avec eux, que je discute pour rentrer dans leur intimité et pouvoir raconter leur vie. Et en tout cas qu'eux acceptent aussi de me parler de manière plus détaillée que pourrait le faire un simple soldat rencontré la journée sur le front. C'est vraiment une question de temps, d'approche, de sensibilité pour rentrer en contact avec ces gens-là.
C'è un'altra domanda qui. Ok, grazie.
Bonjour, je suis journaliste russe, mais de la chaîne indépendante russe qui a été reconnue comme l'agent étranger. C'est pourquoi on a vu indépendant sur le conflit en Ukraine. Et la question des problèmes de la traduction. Quant à vous, vous parlez russe, ukrainien, c'était difficile pour vous?
Alors c'était effectivement difficile dans la mesure où je ne parle pas ukrainien ou russe, mais je le comprends un peu. Mais en fait, je pense que ça a été aussi une grande force, parce qu'à partir d'un certain moment, en fait, les soldats m'ont oublié. Alors pas oublié dans le sens, ils savaient que j'étais là, mais disons que par le fait qu'eux ne comprenaient pas ce que moi je disais, ou alors que moi je ne comprenais pas ce qu'ils disaient, en fait, ils ont été beaucoup plus familiers dans leurs interactions. Ils ont pu en fait continuer à vivre un peu comme ils le faisaient avant, sans prendre en compte ma présence. Et je pense que c'est une particularité très forte du film, c'est qu'il y a beaucoup d'observation. On est vraiment dans l'observation d'une vie quotidienne, d'interaction, de comment ces soldats vivent et survivent dans les tranchées. Et au final, le fait que je ne puisse pas directement converser avec eux a été une force. Mais on a quand même noué des liens, parce qu'effectivement, quand on passe du temps dans ces conditions extrêmes qu'est la guerre, les relations sont fortes, mais on ne pouvait effectivement pas se parler directement.
C'è un'altra domanda, prego.
Bonjour. Voilà, je viens d'un festival de films belge, donc le Ramdam, le festival du film qui dérange. On a déjà accueilli Sergei Loznitsa pour Donbass et on avait déjà présélectionné un film Atlantis que vous connaissez. Donc c'est deux cas très très différents, d'approches très très différentes, donc dans l'absurde pour la première fois et aussi avec une narration dystopique pour Atlantis. Sergei Loznitsa était vraiment en colère et il continue certainement à être en colère. Et également parce que son film n'arrivait pas, c'est une question aussi pour la production, à rencontrer tout le public qu'il méritait. Donc, quelle est aussi votre approche et comment pensez-vous vraiment aller et percer tous les moyens, donc utiliser tous les moyens pour rencontrer le maximum de public et ne pas confiner ce type de film qui mérite beaucoup plus qu'un festival. Voilà, en tout cas, vous êtes les bienvenus chez nous.
Merci, c'est gentil. Effectivement, c'est une grande question, c'est la question de savoir si les conflits intéressent les gens, parce qu'on a tendance à penser et je pense que pas mal de gens sont d'abord concernés par leur propre quotidien. Mais moi, en tant qu'Européen, parce que c'est vraiment en tant qu'Européen que je me place, je considère que le conflit ukrainien est très important parce qu'il a lieu sur notre territoire géographique, l'Europe, et aussi parce qu'il y a des enjeux géopolitiques qui sont très forts en Ukraine et qui peuvent être amenés à être directement liés à des problématiques plus globales dans le monde, comme la place de la Russie, la politique que nous, en tant qu'Européens, nous avons envers la Russie. Vous n'êtes pas sans savoir qu'en ce moment, il y a le gazoduc Nord Stream 2 qui va être inauguré entre l'Allemagne et la Russie, qui est un énorme gazoduc qui va apporter du gaz à l'Allemagne. Voilà, ces questions-là, en fait, l'Ukraine est au centre de ce sujet-là, même si c'est les questions énergétiques, mais l'Ukraine a une place particulière parce qu'avant, les gazoducs traversaient l'Ukraine et l'Ukraine touchait un pourcentage sur ces livraisons de gaz. Et donc maintenant, la Russie pourra ne pas passer par l'Ukraine, et c'est le but de ce gazoduc. Il y a aussi, bien sûr, d'autres sujets. Je pourrais en citer plein, mais par exemple, dans la campagne présidentielle américaine, on a énormément parlé de l'Ukraine parce qu'il y avait le rôle du fils Biden, de Joe Biden, en Ukraine, qui était soupçonné d'avoir été dans des affaires de corruption. Et en fait, l'Ukraine intéresse aussi énormément les États-Unis d'un point de vue de la politique étrangère. Donc voilà, donc il y a la place que nous on a en tant qu'Européens, en tant que citoyens européens, de se dire est-ce qu'on est concerné dans l'ensemble géographique et politique dans lequel on se trouve. Et il y a la place aussi de la diplomatie internationale. Et dans ces deux places, l'Ukraine tient un rôle très, très important.
Ovviamente queste questioni di geopolitica sono super interessanti, potremmo andare avanti ancora, però vorrei fare un ritorno sull'aspetto dell'incontro con i personaggi del film, nel senso che quello che il film ritrae è, come diceva lui prima, la vita quotidiana, i tempi morti di questi soldati all'interno delle trincee, e tutto avviene con estrema naturalezza, con estrema ordinarietà. È quasi un film mondano questo, non è un film di grandi momenti di scontri, ma di quotidianità. È per questo che gli volevo chiedere come ha incontrato i suoi personaggi, come si è avvicinato a loro e come ha reso familiari questi personaggi con la sua camera.
Disons qu'il y a 3 grands personnages dans le film. Il y a Oleg, le jeune Ukrainien qu'on peut voir assez souvent. Il y a Oksana, la jeune Ukrainienne, en tout cas l'Ukrainienne, la seule en fait femme combattante au sein des tranchées, et en tout cas dans cette brigade. Et puis il y a Barada, donc l'officier un peu qu'on voit à certains moments. Les approches ont été différentes pour chaque personnage. Oleg, c'est quelqu'un qui a à peu près mon âge, avec qui j'avais forcément des intérêts et une culture commune dans plein d'aspects, les réseaux sociaux, la vie, la culture, le cinéma, etc. On avait plein de choses en commun, donc on s'est forcément liés de manière beaucoup plus informelle. Après, avec Oksana, ça a été un peu plus compliqué en tant qu'homme, parce qu'il faut approcher quelqu'un qui a une place particulière dans la tranchée, qui est la seule femme qui vit dans cette tranchée, qui vit dans cette brigade. Mais en même temps, c'est un personnage qui s'est imposé à moi, parce que quand je suis arrivé dans cette unité, dans cette brigade, quand je me suis rendu compte qu'il n'y avait qu'une seule femme, et qu'en plus elle était vraiment aux avancées des lignes de front, donc dans les tranchées, je me suis dit c'est impossible que je fasse un film ici sans parler d'elle. Et puis il y a Barada, qui est le personnage qui en fait lui est un peu plus vieux, mais qui en fait lui a vécu toute la guerre. C'est-à-dire qu'il a commencé, il s'est enrôlé en 2014, et il a passé 7 ans sur le front. Et en fait, c'est quelqu'un qui a été détruit aussi psychologiquement et même physiquement, en fait, parce qu'il a énormément pris de poids. Et on le voit, il est tout le temps en train de fumer, il est très stressé. Et en plus, il doit souvent former les nouvelles recrues, comme l'autre personnage, Oleg, qui arrive sur place. Et voilà, ces 3 personnages que j'ai esquissés, qui avaient des caractéristiques et des mentalités différentes. Et je pense que ça racontait, en tout cas, un peu la diversité des profils que peut y avoir aujourd'hui dans les soldats qui sont dans l'armée ukrainienne.
In tal senso volevo tornare proprio specificamente sul personaggio femminile, soprannominata Persefone, forse il personaggio più inatteso, nel senso che non ci aspettiamo di trovare una donna in questo contesto e soprattutto così coinvolta, con un ruolo quasi materno, che lei stessa definisce tale. Vorrei capire meglio come questa donna è finita lì e come c'è stato questo rapporto anche con questo ambiente così prettamente maschile, e come l'hai decisa di inquadrare, perché obiettivamente è uno dei personaggi che si dà di più alla camera, che viene intervistata, che ci dà il suo punto di vista su quello che sta succedendo.
Je pense qu'elle a compris rapidement ce que je voulais faire. C'est-à-dire que je lui ai fait part rapidement du fait que c'était la seule femme dans cette brigade et qu'elle avait un rôle particulier, et elle le comprenait. Et je pense qu'il y a aussi, effectivement, elle nous a fait part assez tôt, assez rapidement de sa position de femme dans un univers qui est très viriliste, très parfois macho. Ça a été aussi, je pense, une sorte d'échappatoire pour elle de pouvoir nous raconter ça. Et souvent, en fait, elle essayait de nous parler quand les autres n'étaient pas là, parce qu'elle savait que si elle disait certaines choses en leur présence, elle serait peut-être moquée par la suite. Et voilà, c'est un personnage, effectivement, pour rentrer dans l'intimité d'une femme dans un monde d'hommes, dans la guerre, est très particulière. Je sais par exemple qu'au sein même du bunker, en fait, elle vivait dans une salle qui était avec le commandant. Donc voilà, pour pas qu'elle se mélange trop aux autres hommes, parce que ça reste compliqué. Normalement, les soldats vivent vraiment dans une très grande promiscuité, et donc ça reste effectivement très compliqué pour une femme de devoir faire face à tous ces problèmes quotidiens dans une brigade entièrement composée d'hommes. C'est une place très particulière, et je pense que c'était dur aussi pour elle. Après, le personnage d'Oksana, il y a ce que raconte le film, et il y a ce que moi aussi je sais de sa vie en dehors du film, parce qu'on pouvait malheureusement pas tout raconter non plus. Mais c'est une femme qui a rencontré d'énormes difficultés dans sa vie, et qui a fait des choix très difficile. Et aujourd'hui, en fait, en Ukraine, c'est un pays qui reste quand même assez pauvre. Il y a beaucoup de chômage et en fait il y a des soldats qui sont engagés dans l'armée ukrainienne pour des raisons financières, c'est-à-dire qu'aujourd'hui on est payé à peu près 600 € le mois en tant que soldat, en tout cas sur le front dans l'armée ukrainienne, et 600 € en Ukraine c'est beaucoup et c'est quelque chose à prendre en compte. Et je sais qu'Oksana par exemple avait décidé de s'engager parce que, donc bien sûr il y avait aussi, elle était en accord avec les accords de l'armée ukrainienne, mais elle avait envie aussi de pouvoir subvenir aux besoins de sa famille et c'était quelque chose d'important pour elle.
Volevo fare una domanda anche sull'utilizzo del paesaggio, nel senso che il film è quasi interamente integrato all'interno degli spazi delle trincee o gli spazi adiacenti alle trincee, ma ci sono anche dei momenti in cui ci sono dei controcampi sul paesaggio, il paesaggio svuotato, così piatto, così tranquillo e pacifico, dei momenti in cui i soldati stessi sono all'interno del paesaggio, addirittura in dei momenti quasi ludici. E mi domandavo come questo elemento è stato integrato nel film, perché sembra quasi che questo paesaggio non sia un paesaggio di guerra.
Ce qui est intéressant dans l'univers des tranchées, c'est qu'il y a ce qui est vu, il y a ce qu'on voit dans les tranchées, et puis il y a ce qu'on ne voit pas effectivement, parce que les tranchées cachent forcément l'environnement extérieur. Les tranchées sont aussi généralement construites dans les campagnes, parce que dans les villes, forcément, l'intérêt n'est pas le même, parce que le but premier d'une tranchée, c'est de se protéger, de se consolider une position militaire. Donc effectivement, il y a cet aspect très, parfois presque bucolique, de voir ces grands champs en fait, qui sont le propre de la campagne ukrainienne. Et au milieu de ça, les tranchées qui passent. Mais il y a quelque chose de très similaire avec ce que nous avions en France, dans le nord de la France, qui ne sont pas exactement le même paysage, mais un peu quand même, il y a des similarités. Et voilà, donc il y a un jeu pendant tout le film entre l'enfermement, le confinement des tranchées et des bunkers, et en même temps le fait qu'effectivement quand on voit à l'extérieur, on voit un espèce de paysage bucolique de campagne qui en fait n'est pas l'image qu'on se fait d'une guerre actuellement.
Volevo poi chiedere in merito alla realizzazione del film all'interno delle trincee e in questa location, Svitlodarsk, chi c'era insieme a lui? Con chi hai lavorato? Credo di capire che ci sia stato un interprete, ma era la tua una troupe molto ristretta, anche per l'ovvia ristrettezza degli spazi. Vorrei capire meglio come è stato realizzato concretamente all'interno delle trincee il girato.
Alors j'étais seul à m'occuper de l'aspect technique. J'avais en revanche un traducteur qui était aussi mon fixeur, c'est-à-dire la personne qui me mettait en contact déjà pour avoir l'autorisation d'aller sur le front, et puis ensuite qui prenait soin de ma propre sécurité, parce qu'il y a effectivement des risques intrinsèques au fait de couvrir des guerres. Et tout a été fait par le son, l'image. J'ai dû m'occuper un peu de tout, mais la particularité c'est que vu que c'est un endroit fixe, on reste au même endroit pendant des mois. On peut se permettre en fait le loisir de vraiment travailler ces aspects-là, contrairement peut-être à d'autres documentaires où on va devoir bouger, prendre une voiture, etc. Là, quand je me réveillais dans les tranchées, je pouvais imaginer directement qu'est-ce que j'allais filmer, regarder ce que faisaient les soldats. Donc il y avait un rapport très direct et très un peu presque même contemplatif. J'étais là, j'observais, j'avais vraiment un rôle d'observateur. Et dans ce rôle contemplatif, c'est beaucoup plus facile de construire quelque chose dans son esprit. Je trouve Et puis en plus, comme je vous le disais tout à l'heure, il y a aussi ce côté existentiel qui est très fort dans les guerres et qui permet aussi une grande remise en question. Et c'est un monde dans lequel on se pose beaucoup de questions. Oui.
Vorrei anche chiedere quanto sono durate le riprese e quando si sono tenute, in che periodo è stato girato il film précisément.
Alors il y a à peu près 3 mois de tournage, mais avant j'avais fait des repérages pour pouvoir. J'ai visité plusieurs brigades, plusieurs emplacements, plusieurs endroits pour trouver exactement le lieu qui me convenait le mieux, et puis aussi rencontrer les soldats, voir voilà, si j'avais déjà des connexions qui pouvaient être faites. Mais voilà, ça a duré à peu près 3 mois, sachant que 3 mois, en fait, c'est extrêmement long hein, dans la guerre. La plupart des gens qui vont couvrir des guerres, les images que vous voyez des guerres dans le monde, sont des images qui ont été filmées en quelques jours, en quelques semaines. Personne ne reste pendant des mois sur une zone de front, ou en tout cas, c'est très rare. Et dans le cas du conflit ukrainien, personne n'a envie de rester des mois et des mois dans les tranchées. Parce qu'il y a quelque chose de très, très fatigant. Au-delà du risque qui est pris, les conditions sont extrêmement précaires. Et donc, en fait, plus le tournage avance, plus on est fatigué et plus, en fait, on peut peut-être perdre de vue l'objectif qu'on s'était fixé au départ, notamment l'exigence de la qualité esthétique, par exemple. Et moi, le travail le plus dur pour moi, ça a vraiment été de garder en tête, de me faire violence presque pour pouvoir continuer dans l'idée que je m'étais faite du film que je faisais. Ça peut paraître un peu bête, mais c'est la réalité. Je veux dire, quand vous dormez 2 heures par nuit, je peux vous assurer que le lendemain, trouver la force de prendre sa caméra et de continuer à filmer, c'est parfois très compliqué.
Je peux ajouter... Et surtout en documentaire, je pense que ce qui est le plus important, parce que vous parliez de la durée de tournage, c'est la préparation. C'est tout le temps en fait qu'il a passé avant pour pouvoir, quand il est dans les tranchées, filmer. Parce que je pense que s'il n'y a pas tout, parce que c'est ça que je veux dire, c'est que la préparation, elle est beaucoup, c'est des années par rapport au tournage qui peut sembler.
E ho una domanda sia per Caroline che per Lu a proposito della messa in forma di queste immagini, perché ovviamente nel momento in cui si raccoglie il girato per un documentario è estremamente importante quello che si fa poi a livello di montaggio, di post-produzione. Quindi vorrei chiedere qual è stato il tipo di rapporto che c'è stato con il girato, quanto era magari anche il girato e come si è lavorato alla messa in forma in un film che peraltro è estremamente conciso, estremamente efficace. Dicevamo, come membro del comitato posso dire che avevamo quasi pensato che ci fosse un elemento di fiction in un film così capace di coinvolgere lo spettatore in un racconto così fortemente cinematografico.
En fait, le propre du tournage, c'est qu'en fait, on ne sait pas ce qui va s'y passer. Donc on ne sait pas quels sont les événements qui vont avoir lieu, on ne sait pas si des soldats vont être blessés ou tués pendant le tournage. Et en même temps, on sait une autre partie de ce qui va s'y passer, c'est-à-dire la vie quotidienne. La vie quotidienne est quelque chose qui se répète forcément. Donc la question c'était de savoir en fait, à partir de combien de fois, quand j'ai filmé par exemple le petit déjeuner, est-ce que j'ai besoin, quand je l'ai filmé 20 fois, est-ce que j'ai besoin de continuer à le filmer 21, 22 fois? Parce que les journées se répètent, il y a une très grande léthargie, les soldats passent beaucoup de temps à attendre. Mais pour moi, le documentaire, c'est vraiment fait au montage. Je pense que beaucoup de documentaristes vous le diront, le montage est essentiel. C'est là qu'on réalise en fait la trame narrative, c'est là qu'on réfléchit à quelle histoire on raconterait vraiment, même si on a sur le tournage des idées, on les met en œuvre, mais le montage est là où réellement tout se construit. Et j'ai eu la chance, pendant ce tournage, en tout cas, des choses se sont passées. Voilà. C'est possible que pendant 3 mois sur un terrain de guerre, relativement peu de choses se passent. Mais en fait, là, il s'est passé des gros événements qui ont permis aussi de construire une trame narrative et qui ont permis à la fin d'aller d'un point A vers un point B et de raconter réellement un film.
Et en fait, pour répondre à votre question, je pense que quand on monte un film, on le monte de la même manière que ce soit un documentaire ou une fiction. Ça veut dire qu'au final, on doit donner une œuvre de cinéma. Et alors évidemment, c'est toujours plus difficile pour le réalisateur qui a filmé les images de parfois avoir un certain recul. Mais il a été accompagné par Léo Gatelier, son monteur, et aussi par Catherine Catella. Et c'est vrai qu'à un moment, le travail finalement de montage, comme dit Lou, qui est extrêmement riche en documentaire, avec la trame narrative, on arrive en fait à construire des histoires, et surtout ici, le gros enjeu, comme disait Lou, c'était que il fallait évidemment montrer ce qu'enduraient les soldats, mais sans ennuyer le spectateur. C'était le gros défi en fait du documentaire, et de montrer ce que ressentaient les soldats. Et c'est en ça que c'est une véritable, on l'a construit, en tout cas ce qu'on a voulu faire, c'est le construire comme une expérience de cinéma, c'est-à-dire que le spectateur puisse ressentir ce que les soldats vivaient. Et peut-être que je parle trop vite, mais c'est vrai que la musique aussi de Gustave Rudman-Roncalli, que a choisi Lou dès le départ, était un vrai choix narratif aussi pour accompagner en fait pour accompagner ces scènes. Et c'est vrai que parfois le documentaire n'aime pas la musique extradiégétique, mais on considérait que c'était voilà, que ça faisait partie intégrante du projet et de ce que voulait faire Lou.
Si je peux rajouter quelque chose, il y a quelque part, en fait, ce que j'ai fait aussi sur ce documentaire, c'est de modifier la réalité, dans le sens où le film est en noir et blanc, en 4/3, ce qui est effectivement pas ce qu'on voit de nos propres yeux, mais c'est une modification de la réalité qui a pour but de montrer une autre réalité, qui est celle que moi j'ai vécue. Donc effectivement, c'est mon point de vue, c'est ma perspective, et c'est les sensations que moi j'avais avec les soldats qui racontent leur vie. De toute façon, je pense que le documentaire est toujours un point de vue, mais voilà, il y a cette idée intéressante de modification d'une réalité pour, en fait, promouvoir une autre réalité.
Sfortunatamente il nostro tempo a disposizione è terminato, e quindi devo terminare questa bellissima conversazione con Lou e Caroline. Vi ringrazio moltissimo di essere stati con noi, e ringrazio ovviamente anche i colleghi della stampa che hanno partecipato alla conferenza stampa. Grazie ancora e buona giornata.
Grazie.
Buongiorno, siamo qua per la conferenza stampa del film DUNE, presentato fuori concorso, e al tavolo, a partire dalla destra in fondo, Javier Bardem, Oscar Isaac, Rebecca Ferguson, il regista del film Denis Villeneuve, Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya e Josh Brolin. I'd like to start with a question, just to break the ice to Denis, because I understand that this book has been with you for a very, very long time. And so what is it that made it so important for you when you were young and now?
I kept saying to the cast, push the button. I think that when I read it as a kid, I was like struck by Paul's journey, the way he finds his identity, comfort into another culture, his relationship with nature, and his feeling, this melancholy and this beautiful feeling of isolation that the character was going through, and struggling with all this heritage, the weight of an heritage on his shoulder. That's something that deeply moved me at art at the beginning.
Hi, this is Matic Majcen from RTV Slovenia. I have a question for Timothy. The character of Paul Atreides has already given us one iconic performance, namely by Kyle MacLachlan in the David Lynch film. So I wondered, while you were preparing for the role, did you use that performance or as any kind of template or inspiration, or did you prefer to stay away from that as much as you could and build something that is completely your own? Thank you.
Yep, sorry. The latter. Because that was loud, sorry. Huge respect for Kyle's performance, and I love that version, and I watched it about 2 months before we started shooting. I've been fortunate enough to work on other projects that have had prior iterations with great actors in them, and I have huge respect for all of them, but when Denis Villeneuve asks you to do a movie and do his version of a movie, you forget all that, and you make yourself as humble as the source material asks you to be, and I guess just went at it like that.
There.
Hi, Stephen Shaver here for the Boston Herald. Denis, I wonder when you got to do this massive movie, which is called Part 1, what did you find was your biggest challenge, actually? And secondly, because it is Part 1, what is the benchmark when we'll find out we can have Part 2?
The biggest challenge doing Dune was by far to deal and master with Timothy's hair. No. Because it's alive, and I had to direct Timothy, and I had to direct his haircut. And you guys don't know. Okay, sorry. The biggest challenge I will say was to try to find a balance between. The book is so rich. And it's a book that takes all its strength into its details, and it was really to try to find an equilibrium between the information that someone that doesn't know the book at all, the amount of information that the audience that don't know the book, the amount of information they will need to understand the movie, without crushing them with exposition, and trying to be, of course, as cinematographic as possible. So it's like that was the big challenge, not trying to find the right amount of information so the audience could follow the story correctly and follow this adventure. About the benchmark, that I'm not the one who will draw the line. I think that one thing for sure is that the Warner Brother and the Legendary are proud of the movie right now, and putting all their efforts to bring it to the world on the big screen, which I'm very happy. And we'll see how it goes. I mean, hopefully, at the end of the day, these are, of course, difficult times. for everybody, and we all agree safety first. I mean, but if the audience feels comfortable and there's a safe environment, I encourage them to see this movie on the big screen, because it has been dreamed, it has been designed, it has been made, it has been shot, thinking IMAX, thinking, and the sound design, everything. It's when you watch this movie on a big screen, it's almost like an IMAX. It's a physical experience. You know, we try to design a movie that will be as immersive as possible. So that's why and for me, the big screen is part of the language. Voilà.
Hello, I'm Pepe Pavlanez from Cadena Ser Radio, Spain. I would like to ask to Javier Bardem, because DUNE, I think, in my opinion, talks about one of the most important problems today, environment. You are a green activist, and I wonder if for you it's important that movies like that talk about this. If my colleagues don't kill me, I ask you if you could answer in English and in Spanish, please. If you don't mind, of course.
In English and in Spanish will take a lot of time, no? First in English, I think, yes, the movie, the author was ahead of his time, and he was already concerned about how the world was going towards, in the sense of losing the capacity to have us all in good health, as long as we violate its limits. And here we are today, dealing with that, thinking that it's something that is going to happen in the next future, but it's happening as we speak, which is kind of scary. It's on the governments, it's on the big corporations, the solution to really make a big step ahead and really change our minds about how we behave in this world. And it's a change of style, of lifestyle for all of us, and it's kind of scary. But it's either that or a disaster, as the people who know say. So my character in this movie thinks that way as well, and is defending the environmental aspect of the planet in order to at least make his tribe, his people survive. And I was absolutely, linked emotionally or conceptually to that color of the character immediately when I read it in the book and when I read it in the script. So it is important that in a movie like this, Denis and the whole crew, the whole people have made this amazing movie, tells that part of the story, because it's one step more in the right direction. En español no puedo porque si no sería demasiado. Gracias. Por tiempo me dicen. Gracias, perdona.
Hello, Kuriko from Japan, eiga.com. I have a question to Mr. Villeneuve and one question to Ms. Zendaya and Mr. Chalamet. To Mr. Villeneuve, I have an impression that this film is politically very relevant today. So I would not say its message, but there is a political context subject in it. So could you talk about the process of adaptation? And the question to Ms. Zendaya, how about your hairstyle? I'm joking. Your presence is very, very big impact. So how do you prepare to this role? And one question to Mr. Chalamet. This is a very epic story, and your presence is very, very strong in the whole movie. So personally, what does it mean to you, this movie, and what impact do you think in your career? Thank you.
To start quickly, I will say that when Frank Herbert wrote Dune in the 60s, back then he was like doing like a portrait of the 20th century, but I think it became more and more through time, like prediction of what will happen in the 21st. And sadly, the book is by far more relevant today about the blend of the danger of the blend between the cross mix between religion and politics, the danger of messianic figures, the impact of colonialism, as Javier pointed out, the problem with the environment. And as this book stayed with me through the years, but it just felt more and more and more through time, more and more relevant. And so I think that sadly, I wish it was not the case, but I think the movie it will speak to the world right now more than it would have done 40 years ago, I will say. Yeah, I will say that about the environment to add to what Javier said. I think that future generations will judge us. I think it's time to get angry right now. I think it's time to push, to make changes. I think I still have hope, and I think that it's time to get into action. I think it's like there's as an example, there's an election right now in Canada. They don't talk enough about environment. That should be the priority. That's the thing we should talk about in this election right now, and they don't talk about it that much. It's just like another subject. That should be the subject. Anyway, I don't want to be moralistic. I just think that's it's about survival, and that's what this book is about: surviving.
Hi. Well, I didn't really get much time to shoot with these amazing people, some of which I got to meet today. And I was extremely, I guess you could say, intimidated, because obviously there's so many people here that I admire. And then the opportunity to work with Denny, I think he's an extraordinary filmmaker and has always been someone that I also admired. So stepping into that, I was like, I don't have much time, and there's so many people that I have to hopefully stand next to and do somewhat of a good job, you know, and it was intimidating and scary, but as soon as I got there, there was such a warmth and an embrace that I felt immediately comfortable and taken care of, and all I had to do was be guided, and Denny opened up and explained the world to me, and was able to do that in a short amount of time, and everybody was so welcoming, and it was a beautiful experience. I was only there for a few days, but I felt like I had been very quickly a part of a family. So yeah, I appreciate all of you guys for making it such a wonderful time, and I feel extremely grateful to just be a piece of this really gorgeous puzzle that is Dune, you know. So yeah, very, very humbled, and it was a special time, but just trusted him.
I'll try to go quickly too, because I know we got to get to some other questions, but simply put, this was the honor of a lifetime for me. And I like how Zendaya just put it. In some way, I just had to be guided, even though it was a project size I hadn't been on before. And every person, every artist I'm fortunate enough to sit up here with right now, and maybe I shouldn't admit this, but I was able to lean on each one emotionally at some point over the course of these 4 or 5 month shoot. These are all actors I've seen in projects that I admire. That's not actors blowing smoke. That's really, if we had more time, I can have a longer conversation about it. And now I'm proud to call these, you know, my sisters and brothers, if that's with everyone up here. I hope we get to do a second one. That'd be a dream. And yet, in some way, I'm simply grateful for the experience of doing this. And Josh Brolin said it beautifully this morning in a different interview. When you make, the process of making the thing is different than the putting it out. So there's 3 versions of the movie. There's a movie you read, there's the movie you make, and there's the movie they edit. And now there's the movie we're putting out there, so hopefully people go see it, but this has already been a dream come true.
Speaking of guidance, I like to bring in the conversation Rebecca Ferguson and Oscar Isaac, who play Paul's parents. And Oscar, you have the power of war, and Rebecca, you have the power of the mind. Can you talk a little bit about the relationship between your characters and Paul?
Yes. Hi. Hello. War. I don't know. I feel like what Duke Leto brings, which is maybe very specific, is in some way he's the most recognizably human, meaning he has no special powers, he has no, he has nothing that is, that any of us don't have other than being the ruler of Caladan. So, you know, and the fact that he's knowingly marching towards his demise and knows that, and that's from the book too. I mean, from the second people start talking about him, they're saying, you know, he's not going to make it. and yet there's still this tension about what he's going to do and if he's going to continue. And, you know, not to get too highfalutin about it, but it's very similar to, we all know that we're going to die, yet we still have to continue and make choices. And so I think as far as a figure for his son, trying to bring some sense of humanity and nobility not in the blue blood kind of way, but nobility in terms of seeking a higher level of consciousness and a higher way of leading a nation and of leading a people, especially coming into this place. Like, how do you inherit all of this ugliness and all of this evil and all these machinations that are out of your control and try to move towards a more noble state of being? I think that's the big thing that he's trying to give to this son that has been prophesied to be some messiah or something. But as far as he's concerned, as long as you can hold on to that humanity and the higher idea of humanity, you'll be okay. And it's an interesting dynamic between the two of them. That was something we had to talk a lot between Rebecca and I about how much do they know about what each parent is doing? How much does he know about all of this, you know, manipulations over the centuries and what this means? You know, it starts with this thing that she was supposed to have a daughter and she gave me a son instead. You know, she broke the rules out of some sense of love. Is it because it was a sense of love, or is it because she already knew it was time for this Messiah to show up? So it's amazing, because the more questions you ask, the deeper and deeper and deeper it goes.
Yes. Hello. It's so interesting just listening to the interviews that we're doing and listening to other people's answers, because what I love is you can do films and you can ride along, I feel, on other people's description of character description or emotion, and I feel we all have our own identity, really and truly, in this. We all have our own relationships to each other and to the spice and to, you can't just ride along. I mean, for me, or for Jessica, it's such a mind game and an emotional one as well, that balance of being a mother, but also having such a strong belief in something greater than just being a mother. And one isn't better or doesn't sort of outsmart the other, but you know, she comes from this sisterhood, the Bene Gesserit, who are there to manipulate the outcome of the universe, basically. And then conflicted with this passion and love for her belief. And also, I believe, we spoke a lot about true love. What happens when you fall in love? And the request of creating a son versus my chores. Which one do you go for? You know, it's a constant struggle. And you say mind, I mean, this is her entire identity. It's the mind struggle, but the emotional protection of children, of your child, of your loved ones, and knowing what is right. It's and finding those lovely balances. Thankfully, I had a director helping me from one emotion to the other. I was quite confused sometimes. But yeah.
But to speak to Denis as well, you know, it was something that we constantly spoke about. And trying to find that balance and how, you know, how much we reveal of what they know, and looking, you constantly going back to the book and talking about scenes and what can we add, what do we not need, how can we deepen the feeling of the family, and particularly the emotional battle between duty and, you know, love of your family, wanting to keep your family safe.
Nicely said, Oscar. That was good.
Thank you. I was just looking at you for approval
And
the whole time.
Rebecca. Hi, Helen Barlow from Australia. This is a question to Josh. I saw the Stephen Colbert thingy me question thing with a lot of you, and you were like the class clown, and every time your name is mentioned, Timothy smiles. So were you kind of the class clown on the set? And it's hilarious that your first line is, "I am smiling," when you're not smiling. And how was it to play this stern military man, given that you are this gregarious kind of person in real life? And how was it on the set?
I apologize, madam. Josh is not allowed to speak.
He put it in my contract. Wow, man. There's so much to say. There's so much intelligence up here that I can't match. I think I was on set as Denis' friend, and I was somehow worked into the movie. I don't even know. I haven't read the book, so I don't know if the character is actually in the book. But I'm paid to make people laugh, apparently, even in dramas. So I have the power of the testicles in this movie. Yes, I said it. And that's what I represent. I'm here to protect the Duke. That's all I know. I'm listening to all these, what I find fascinating in all seriousness, which is very difficult for me. What I find fascinating is what we created before we started the movie is not what we're experiencing now. You know, you have ideas of what this was and what Frank Herbert Jr. created. I just for a moment imagined Frank Herbert Jr. listening to us right now and to think, like, would he be proud? Is this what he intended? Was he talking about this when he was talking to Alan Watts in the 60s? Was he imagining us when he did LSD in the 60s? Whatever it is,
he saw you for sure.
For me, he imagined only me.
A big Brolin, LSD and a Brolin.
But he, I think he intended something very powerful. And when I saw the movie, that's what I saw. You know, I know we're kind of supposed to talk away from kind of the fandom of Doom, but when I saw it, when the movie was screened for me, I brought somebody who was a major fan and had read the series probably 3 times over when they were very young, 8 years old, 9 years old. And we screened the movie. There was a long pause afterwards, and this man is 48 years old and from New York City. And he started screaming at the top of his lungs. And he said, "That's what I saw. That's what I saw as a kid. Yes, yes, yes," you know. And when you see that kind of reaction, you realize it hit somebody on a very visceral level, you know. Allows for regression and allows for something else to happen other than just a cinematic spectacle.
Bonjour, c'est Louis-Philippe Ouimet de Radio-Canada. Une question en français pour M. Villeneuve et M. Chalamet. Bon, c'est un rêve d'adolescence pour vous, M. Villeneuve, le roman Dune. Vous êtes beaucoup identifié à Paul Atreides, hein, Fear is the Mind Killer. Comment tous les deux vous avez travaillé, parce que vous parlez de frères et sœurs, de fraternité, d'un amour avec le réalisateur. Donc, M. Villeneuve et M. Chalamet, comment vous avez travaillé ensemble, entre autres pour la fameuse scène du gomme Jabbar qui était assez émouvante, là. Quelle symbiose vous avez installée ensemble?
Déjà la langue, et on peut plaisanter sur ça, mais franchement, d'avoir une tunnel de communication qui était unique pour nous, ça me rassurait. Mais après ça, je dois dire... je sais pas comment dire, le niveau de seriousness que Denis a approché la matériel, que souvent dans les films ou les adaptations sci-fi, on essaie d'ajouter tellement d'éléments et tellement de trucs qui sont intéressants. Et là, j'avais l'impression que Denis voulait l'opposé, que l'environnement était vrai et qu'il voulait les personnages and their behavior d'être vrais aussi. Et par rapport à la scène de Gomme Jabbar, c'était la prescription comme acteur de mettre la main dans une boîte où on se dit « That's the most pain you've ever had in your life ». Alors, c'était des deux côtés, d'essayer de faire le rôle du côté réaliste, mais aussi de me mettre dans les mains de Denis et d'avoir la confiance où il voulait que j'aille, de me mettre à fond, de not question it, et avoir toute la confiance qui est facile d'avoir avec Denis.
Je dirais que Timothée est quelqu'un qui a un intellect très fort, qui est un intellectuel, et qui a voulu, dès le départ, qu'on a approché le scénario, on a discuté, on a beaucoup discuté. On a eu beaucoup de discussions intellectuelles sur le film, et sur le plateau, mon rôle était de rapprocher ça, d'aller dans la viscéralité de la scène, puis d'aller, les idées étaient installées dans la scène, il fallait aller s'enfoncer dans l'émotion, et Timothée m'a fait confiance. Je dirais que, je crois, c'est une des premières scènes qu'on a fait ensemble, et le fait qu'on travaillait avec Charlotte Rampling, la grande Charlotte Rampling, qui était absolument magnifique, et en fait, qui nous terrifiait aussi. On avait peur de Charlotte.
Qui faisait peur aussi, parce qu'on ne voyait pas son visage, et elle avait
Non, mais ça aidait beaucoup, je pense. Ça a été, et c'est là c'est dans cette scène vraiment que le personnage de Paul est né. C'est là que j'ai vu tout le génie, toute la puissance d'acteur de Timothée, où, dans un plan précis, je me souviens très bien, où le personnage doit devenir possédé. C'est presque un exorciste, où le personnage devient comme soudainement possédé par une force intérieure qu'il ne soupçonne pas, qui vient de son inconscient, qui vient d'ailleurs. Et c'est un moment où Timothée, son regard, son visage s'est littéralement transformé devant la caméra. Il y a quelque chose, il y a une charge qui est sortie. Et je me souviens à ce moment-là, je pleurais de joie, puis je me suis mis à danser derrière la caméra parce que je me disais, ça y est, j'ai un film. Je me suis pas trompé. Il est Paul. J'étais tellement heureux.
Hi. First of all, congratulations that you finally got to screen the film. And I have a question for Timothy. Actually, could you tell us a little bit more about the sandwalk and perhaps demonstrate it?
Alors, was one of the best choreographers in the world, Benjamin Millepied, who is a director in his own right, who actually came up with the sandwalk. So the first video I think Rebecca and I would have gotten was a video of him on Santa Monica Beach in Los Angeles doing the sandwalk. I'm afraid if I did it right now, I'd be in rhythm, and this whole room would be devoured by a sandworm. So that's a bad joke, but that was another thing to the question we just had in French. That was something that Denis dealt with in a very grounded way. So on set, it wasn't something that, not that we were being too precious or too self-serious, but it was something that was like, hey, let's not be goofy about this. Let's really get this right. And Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong, we had the scene in Abu Dhabi, and I think we found the dialogue to it afterwards, but we had to walk down, and hopefully we see TikToks, people doing the sandwalk and stuff. No.
I'm going to jump in. I remember thinking, I need to study this. And then I thought, no, thank God, I'm not supposed to know it. I can get away with not knowing it and look silly.
I think we have time for one more, and she's been waiting.
Hello, Massimo Mazzetto. I have a question for Mr. Villeneuve. You have mentioned before the soundtrack, the biggest sounds. I was wondering, have you, before the movie, the idea of making the music with Hans Zimmer, or it came along the movie?
Actually, when I decided to make this movie, Hans was the very first artist I asked to come on board. At the time, we were finishing Blade Runner, and I remember having a conversation with Hans. And he, if I may, he said to me, you know that it's one of my biggest dreams to score Dune. It's so much of a dream that I didn't watch anything. He never watched the previous movies. He never watched anything because he wanted to stay virgin, like and he wanted. He said, "I hope one day." And he came to Montreal and we had a nice dinner, and we had a discussion about, is it a good idea to try to bring to life one of your oldest, one of your most precious dreams? Is it a good idea to try to do that? And we were not sure of the answer, but we did it. And the thing is that Hans started to dream. I remember he gave me his own copy of the book. He said, bring the book in the desert with you. It would be good for the soul of the movie. His old Dune book. I kept him with me, and he started to work for months and months and months and months of exploration. He wanted to bring new sounds. He wanted to go out of his comfort zone. He wanted to approach music in a different way. And strangely, the pandemic came, and strangely, it forced him to find new ways to also to interact with the singers, and that were everybody, all the instruments, all the singers, everybody were trapped in their own houses, and sometimes you had those insane, the best singer on earth that were singing in their own closet, you know, trying to, it was like beautiful to see everybody in their own little bubbles and bringing all this score from everywhere and creating all this, we had one thing that we decided right from the start, is that it should be a feminine score to enhance the feminine presence that we felt was very, very, very important and fundamental in the book. And so it was something that we both agreed to bring the female strength from the score as well as we did in the screenplay. Voilà.
I'm sorry, but I'm told that we ran out of time. Thank you, our guest.
Thank you.
Thank you for the film. Buongiorno, questa è la conferenza stampa del film in concorso Spencer e alla mia destra, in fondo al tavolo, dall'altra parte, è Kristen Stewart. E registra il film Pablo Larraín. Pablo, I'm going to start with a very simple question. Why Diana Spencer?
Simple? Okay. Hello. Well, it's a very, there are many answers for that because it's a process on time. But I wanted to make a movie that my mother could like, you know. I've made so many movies that she doesn't like at all. And I also wanted to make a movie that could somehow relate to what I think someone like my mother saw or see in Diana's figure. Diana, of course, was a very famous, beautiful icon on many, many levels. But she was a mother as well. And more importantly, was someone who created something incredibly beautiful, which is the level of empathy that she was able to create. I was always very curious to know why someone like her, that born to such a privileged circumstances, being linked to the royals, aristocracy, was someone so normal at the same time, and that could feel so ordinary and regular, and build these bridges of empathy all around the world. And I, again, insisted on my mother because I saw her kind of having her, you know, her hair cut like her, and she would maybe try to dress like her. And then the more I looked into her, I realized that she carried an enormous amount of mystery. And that mystery combined with the magnetism that she had creates the perfect elements for a movie, you know, and you would never really completely understand. And then we found this miracle here named Kristen that can carry that mystery. And you would never really completely understand up until you get to see the movie. And right after you saw it, maybe you tell me, you just saw it. Maybe, yeah. maybe they would process. I think it's interesting when cinema does that. It allows you to have the audience to complete the process.
As a follow-up, and then I'm coming to you. Kristen, why do you think Diana Spencer had this power on people's imagination and hearts, actually?
I think it's just something she was born with. There are some people that are endowed with an undeniable, just, you know, penetrating energy. I think the really sad thing about her is that she, as normal and sort of casual and disarming her air is immediately, she also felt so isolated and so lonely. Like, she made everyone else feel accompanied and bolstered by this beautiful sort of light. And all she wanted was to just have it back. You know, it's like we're all mirrors of each other. What you give is what you get. And I think that she was sort of, you know, just desperate to reveal some truth in an environment that is steeped in the energy of, you know, as an outsider, I can say the Brits generally have the stiff upper lip mentality that is like, it is the go-to generalization. And I think that for her, I look at pictures of her, anything, even just a fleeting little video clip, and I feel like the ground shakes and you don't know what's gonna happen. And yeah, I think the idea of somebody being so desperate for connection and somebody who's able to make other people feel so good, feeling so bad on the inside, and being so generous with her energy. I just think that we haven't had very many of those people throughout history. I mean, she really sticks out as a sparkly, just, you know, house on fire. Yeah.
There's a question there.
Buongiorno, sono Alessandra De Tommasi di Vogue Italy. My question is to Kristen Stewart. Since Mr. Larraín just pointed out that, of course, Diana is an icon on so many levels, in a fashion world as well, I was wondering, what do you like about her style, and how do you think her style embody her empowering women like us, but especially a woman like her that has so many fragilities? Thank you so much.
She is touchable. I think there's this really common thread in the fashion world, which is elevation. You know, it's unattainable. Come on, let's give them a dream. It's like, I mean, that is one, whatever, that's one way of being or one aspiration, but I think that even when she looked her most beautiful and her most substantial, she also felt like she could kick her shoes off and like walk outside with you and ask you how you are and touch your face and be with you, and you would feel that honesty from her. It's hard to do that when you're teetering around on heels and kind of looking like, you know, nobody can come near you. We do see that as beautiful, but she was really able to just be there. She was so present. Wherever she was right there. Yeah, I think that's my favorite thing. That's my favorite thing about her. Well, I mean, you know, in regards to what she wore. Yeah, it didn't really matter what she was wearing, even though she had like incredible style sense. I think that she was somebody who knew how to like use clothes as armor, but at the same time was so constantly available and visible. It's like she couldn't hide. She wore her heart on her sleeve, and that to me was the coolest thing that she did.
Hey, Kristen. Scott Orland with Cinema Magazine, and she also knew how to use wire cutters. Who knew? I want to ask you, they can teach you how to cook, they can teach you how to drive, but nobody can teach you how to be famous. And as we see, there's that heartbreaking moment where she talks about being under the microscope and almost like having the wings pulled apart. How much did that resonate? I mean, because obviously no one taught you to be famous and it just happened. Did you understand, or did you have a better empathy around what she was going through in some capacity?
I suppose so, yeah. I mean, this is a tough one because I would never want to say, she was the most famous woman in the world. She's the most photographed woman in the entire world, right? Like, that's something that's said about her. And I have tasted a high level of that, but really kind of nowhere near that monumental, symbolic representation of an entire, you know, group of people, like an entire country, and then the world. So my experience with just sort of feeling sometimes like you don't have control over a situation, or when I say situation, like an impression of you. That's life, that's normal, everyone experiences that. You can't control everyone's opinions of you. But I think when you know that the story on the street is just wrong and there's no way to correct it, like, I mean, you know, this is disparate, I'm gonna get back on track, but like the idea that maybe you had 5 minutes where somebody thought that you hadn't connected with them and they've gotten this bad impression. I've wanted to run back 1,000,000 times every day and be like, oh, hey, can we actually redo that interview? I just thought about something else for a second. I didn't say the right thing. Imagine what that was like for her. Imagine feeling backed into a corner to that extent. At some point, you're gonna bare your teeth because you're an animal and it's natural and it's normal. And I feel like everyone feels like they know her, like, because that is her talent. And it's what's beautiful about her, is that she's accessible and you know, you feel like you're friends with her, you feel like she's your mother. But ironically, she was the most unknowable person and somebody who really never wanted to be alone. Some people are good at it, some people hate it. She wanted connection, she wanted people in her life, and she was the most isolated human, at least over these 3 days. It really, the imagining of these 3 days, it really sort of, we wanted that to come to a head. So yeah, of course, like I can relate, but it's tough to, I don't think anyone can understand what that felt like. We tried. I mean, we all dreamed and imagined, but I think the ironic part of, and the sort of the saddest part of the story is that we will never know her, and that's all she wanted, was to just sort of tell the story herself.
Pablo, as a follow-up, why did you give yourself 3 days to capture her?
Well, I think it's interesting what could happen when you look at someone in a crisis, right? Instead of just going over a longer period of time of her life, if you choose a very specific moment where there's a huge crisis, then things can become very interesting and you can get to know that person really well. Because I think the character starts broken in a big crisis, then becomes a ghost, and then she's back again and healed and ready to move on. And in that sense, we felt with Steve Knight, who wrote this beautiful script, and along with my fellow producers here, that it was a great opportunity to create a fairy tale that had a different structure. We all know and tell fairy tales to our children, right? And fables, so for them to go to bed and to have a better understanding of life and an optimistic perspective. But then we grow up and we get to understand that fairy tale is really difficult. And in this case, we have a princess that is just going away from the idea of being a queen, because what she wants is to be herself. And that identity, it's beautiful to see in a compressed amount of time. And that also allowed us to use one single space. This palace, this castle, this house, they call it houses in England. Yeah, sure but use that physical space that could sort of be used as a metaphor of a bigger structure. That house, that palace, it's really an organization. So you have a character that is trapped on the wheels of tradition and history.
Good morning, Davide Sette, News Cinema. I've got a question for Kristen Stewart. This movie looks like a huge free jazz choreography, and even if you remove the Johnny Greenwood soundtrack from it, there's still this syncopated dance between you and the camera and DOP, which gives the movie a very special rhythm. So I want to ask you if you have ever thought about this performance in musical terms, maybe digging into some of the Princess testers, and if you ever thought about your performance in musical terms, and if you listen to any kind of music on set before shooting to get you into a particular mood for this role. Thank you.
Yeah, this movie, this experience, you know, the 3 days before she decided to leave the royal family, we imagined was probably not very much fun. But I took more pleasure into my physicality making this movie than I have on anything. I felt more free and alive and able to move and taller even. Everything about it, I just felt so like, yeah, and now put a leash on all of that. But the best days on set for me, which actually ended up being almost every day, we would shoot a little part of this montage that's in the movie, and it was very freeform. And you know, the only plan we ever had was you pick the look, and he picks everything. But like, it's the look and the room and the song sort of informed the energy, and it was just about inhabiting the space and kind of taking your whole impression of her, of everything you've learned, inside and outside of the script, and just shoving it into one moment and just allowing it to become physical. And if that's not jazz, I don't know what is. It was if I hit a mark, I would have missed it. You know, if I were to try and do my perfect Princess Diana impression, you would start to lose the life that was so overwhelming in her personality. Yeah, so also whenever Pablo would choose a song, and also I was shaking before every single time I ever had to do this. I was like, oh God, like what's it gonna be? I'm gonna go over the stairs, I'm gonna fall down, like what's the song? Is it happy or is it sad? And he's just like, just inhabit this space. But he chose songs that were eerily perfect for me. Songs that I was like, I almost put that on a playlist for you. Really girly. He's like an angsty teenager. There was what's the best one? The cover of.
So just to explain it, what we do is that you play almost every day. We had a space in our schedule for her to dance in a different space. So it was a specific, it's like wardrobe. And then I would choose a song, and I would hide that song from her. And I would roll the camera and then play the song and then see what happens. And then when we put it together, of course, it's Johnny's music, which is beautiful. It's called Crucifix, actually, the piece. But then she's not really dancing when we film it with that music. It was just different type of songs to get her, I don't know, moving and excited and different emotions. Some of them were sadder, some of them were more fun and more aggressive, and sometimes with just classical music as well. So it would just drift into different styles. Just to
Miles Davis, the Talking Heads, like.
Yeah, well, do have some Lou Reed as well.
Yeah. Wait, but this was the best one. It's like it's a Nirvana cover by.
Yeah, it's this choir.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm being such an idiot right now because it doesn't really matter, but.
Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah. And
All Apologize.
Yeah, All Apologies. Song. And I had like just discovered that song, and it kind of blew my mind, and I had never heard it. And it's just such a different interpretation of that song, energetically. And then he put it on, and I literally almost screamed.
All alone is all we are.
Yeah.
There you go.
Except here.
Sì, buongiorno. Andrea Giordano per Icon, in italiano, se possibile, in Italian. Una domanda per Kristen Stewart. Il sistema di Casa Reale, con le sue regole e le sue contraddizioni, non mi sembra tanto lontano anche dal sistema di Hollywood. Volevo sapere, visto che lei è una veterana di Hollywood e del cinema, quanto è stato complicato, difficile per lei in tanti anni difendere la sua indipendenza e la sua visione sulle cose, visto che lei è anche una regista e quindi negli ultimi anni ha sperimentato tante cose. Quindi volevo capire quanto è stato lungo il processo anche per difendere la sua personalità. Grazie molto.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think you find that kind of in every aspect of life, even just being a modern woman in a Western society. There are things that you feel like you have to do, and then you grow up and you realize that you don't have to do all those things, and you get to pick and choose, and you have role models and all of that. Like, yeah, I don't feel an extreme imposed rigidity. That was something I really did have to think about as an outsider. I mean, to the extent that she felt, absolutely. Yeah, because I'm allowed to make mistakes. You know, I think that there's just such a huge, vast difference between, the job of an actor or an aspiring director and somebody in the royal family who is, keeping together an ideal that is supposed to keep an entire nation together. I don't consider my job as lofty. And if I did, I would be puking backstage. I think I have more fun watching art that is immediate and accidental and honest. And yeah, so I'm sure that I'll blunder left and right, and here we go. That's fine. I'm not as afraid of that. Maybe as I was when I was younger, but I think that that's an age thing, and you grow out of it.
Hi, good afternoon. Baz Bammy Boy from the Daily Mail. Kristen Stewart, I wanted to ask you, and congratulations, by the way.
Oh, hi.
You know, your performance is underpinned by the sort of the rules of British aristocracy and etiquette. What were the rules that you had to learn to, you know, to key into your performance? And have any of them stayed with you?
My curtsy just went out the window as soon as I walked off set. No, we had royal advisors. We had people to sort of tell us all the things that you couldn't know as an outsider. At this stage in the film, this woman is, the stage that we depict in the film is a true unraveling. So once I learned the curtsy and I learned that we're supposed to, I don't know, not go in the kitchen ourselves and steal food. Like, all of those details, they're just, I don't really remember them. But there was always someone around to make sure that if anything was out of line, that we were remaining authentic, and we weren't undermining what we were trying to do. Because obviously I'm American and not from that country, and he's, you know, from Chile, and yeah. But specifically, I would say the only thing I can really remember is the curtsy. That's a boring answer. I wish I had more for you. Not very low at all, or else you'll fall over. Yeah.
Il microfono qua, grazie.
Hi. It's a wonderful film, but it necessarily involves our voyeuristic obsession with the private life of a famous celebrity. Mm-hmm. Did that feel strange for you, to feel kind of on the other side of that? Did you have misgivings about kind of getting involved with that type of thing? As someone who's experienced, you know, obviously intrusion in your own private life.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between intruding and the sort of multiplicity that art brings to the world. You know, we were inspired, you know, I say we, I came into this in a later stage, but, you know, the movie doesn't offer any new information. It doesn't profess to know anything. It imagines a feeling, and I think my impression can only be my own. But that Diana was a woman who wanted people to come together, and I think that this movie's ambition is to bridge gaps. And yeah, I you know, I think if anyone ever made a movie about me, I'd be like. I wouldn't feel like it was, I wouldn't feel stolen from or taken from. There's nothing salacious about our intention. I think that would be probably more embedded in interpretation.
Hi, Kristen, lovely to see you again. 2 years ago, I saw you in Seaburg and thought you'd captured the inner life brilliantly. I felt that you surpassed yourself in this movie. Both of them deal with others' control of the central character and your fight for control yourself. How much do you identify with that, and how important is control to you?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, choice and agency, and sometimes, well, it's weird. Like, there are certain oppressive forces that sometimes feel so debilitating that they feel physical. That you feel like you can't make a choice, that you've been forced into this situation, whatever. And you know, barring circumstances that actually do provide like horrific. Actual oppression. When I'm talking like things that ideas that hold you back, that if you just change your perspective or look at it from a different angle or pretend that it's not there, you could get up and start running. it's really, it is something that I think is a really important lesson to learn as you grow older, is that don't let things happen to you. You know, everything's not just coming at you. You know, you are choosing every day which direction to walk in, you know? Every step you take, you're like, how big, how little, right, left. Like, I know that that sounds, you know, kind of vaguely silly, vague and silly, but sometimes it really just is like a dawning moment in which you go, wait a second, no. And yeah, that's something that happens all the time. Like, but yeah, one of my friends was going through kind of a like terrible breakup recently, and it's really, you know, this is specific, but I did make this movie and look at her and go, dude, you can just choose what you want to do. This is not like, you're not on some predestined path. And sometimes your life can sort of like feel like it's happening to you, but really you can just take the reins. Yeah. It's hard to make choices like that though, and so it's scary, and so it takes balls. Yeah.
We have time only for one, I'm told, and I think it's been waiting for.
Hi, it's Robbie Collin from the Daily Telegraph here. Congratulations both on the film, loved it. I want to ask you both about the Anne Boleyn scenes, which I thought were just extraordinary. What did you both make of that historical parallel? What light did you think it shed on Diana's plight?
Well, I appreciate the question, but it's really in the heart of the movie. I wouldn't want to be the one that is here explaining it. That's exactly why we shot it. But what I will say is that it is a reflection on how history repeats itself. And even though that happened 500 years ago, there might be a way to look at it in a very similar way. So, it also speaks about something, it's not only about that, it's also about Major Gregory, Tim Spall's character, because we know what he did, related, please don't put this, but we know that if you saw the movie, of course you would understand. And he's the one that represents the House of Windsor, right? And he explains the magnitude and the relevance of that oath. So I think it's a friction in between the new and the old reality, and a friction that is fascinating for those who aren't British, I guess, which is to see how they remain in the same circumstances.
And I have just a quick one before we close, because we're running out of time. Pablo, could you address, you mentioned before the fairy tale, can you address the Gothic element of the film? Because it's very interesting that at turns it feels like a little bit like a horror film, and then it goes towards light at the end.
Yeah, well, I guess what I tried to express before, but I think that what captures, I guess, the desire and the imagination of billions of people around the world, around Diana, is the possibility of the fairy tale that can actually work out. You know, so there's a woman that is sort of chosen by the prince, and then she would eventually become the queen, and they will live forever, and that just doesn't happen. And I guess growing up, becoming older, becoming an adult, is the realization that life isn't like that. And I guess that is what makes people be so interested, because when we all saw her on that wedding dress, we all want her to succeed. And we all had the idea and the illusion that that would eventually be real, and that it was possible that this fairy tale could actually end well. And it just didn't happen.
Thank you very much, and I'm sorry we have to finish it here.
Thank you.
Buongiorno, siamo qua per la conferenza stampa di un film in concorso, The Lost Daughter, e vi presento gli ospiti al tavolo a partire dalla destra in fondo. La produttrice Talia Kleindenher, Alvaro Ruacher, Dakota Johnson, la regista del film Maggie Gyllenhaal, Olivia Colman, Peter Sarsgaard. Cominciamo con una domanda qua.
Hi, congratulations, everybody. Maggie, this is Stephen Schaefer for the Boston Herald. I wonder what was it about the Elena Ferrante novel that made you say this is going to be my feature directing and screenwriting debut?
Can you hear me? Okay. I have to do something? Okay. Can you hear me? Well, I had first read the Neapolitan novels years ago, and I had this experience when I was reading them, you know, like, oh my God, this woman is so fucked up. And then 1 millisecond later, I thought, oh no, I really relate to her. And, you know, so am I so fucked up, or is this somehow an experience that many, many people are having, but that nobody is talking about? And, you know, that is what I ended up coming to reading those books and feeling really comforted by that. Like, this is, these are secret truths about a feminine experience in the world that I really liked having spoken out loud. So then I thought, well, what if instead of sitting alone in my room with a book having this feeling, what would happen if you had to sit next to either strangers or your own mother or your husband or your own daughter and have these things revealed? It seemed like a kind of dangerous, exciting thing to try. And so that was why I wanted to try to adapt it into a film.
Hi, congrats on the film. I'd love to hear from Maggie, if you could speak a little bit about the point in your career that you realized that you wanted to direct, and also from all the directors that you've worked with, which do you think has helped you most thinking about their work when you stepped behind the camera yourself?
I mean, someone asked me today what I learned doing this, and, you know, obviously I've learned so many things, but one of the things I learned was that I think I've always been a director, and I just didn't feel entitled to admit it to myself. So weirdly, I think actually it was playing Candy on The Deuce, playing a porn director on television. I kind of went, I think this is me actually, and I think it's true. I think it's a better job for me actually. And the director, okay, I didn't actually work with Mike Nichols. I wish I had worked with him, but I once did a reading of a play with him, and I spent an afternoon with him, and he gave me a couple of directions that totally blew my mind. And I've seen the work that actors have done when they were working with him, and I think I do kind of hold him up as a, well, I really admire him, and the way he talked to me was amazing.
Hey there, Scott with Cinema Magazine. Good to see you all. I thought what was so powerful about this movie is that we're all on a trajectory, and we kind of do the things that we're supposed to do. And sometimes we sacrifice personal fulfillment in that request. Other people expect us to do something, and yet the things that we really want to do, we kind of are handicapped by that. And so I was wondering if the actors and Maggie as well could just talk a little bit about how that resonated with you going through this experience with the film. Did it touch on something that you kind of related to?
Oh, and ladies. Yes, I know that all people have, they want to be one person. Turns out they're probably not that person and they're somebody else. So that was something rather beautiful, to be able to play that and to play someone who's does awful things sometimes. Earlier today I was standing on a terrace thing and I thought, I could drop something really heavy. I won't. Something in me stops me from doing that. But there's something about this piece and this character. You could do something that you shouldn't do. And that was intriguing to me, to play someone that does something that I wouldn't do, although you do sometimes think about it. So I think that's what, well, for me that was intriguing, and I think maybe that's what we all felt a bit. I don't know. No. Dakota's a much nicer person than me, should you? Yeah, what do you think? I haven't seen it yet. So this is all, I'm making it up.
Well, you were there.
I was there, that's true, I was there.
I'm not actually sure I understand the question.
I didn't either, I was just making stuff up.
As these women, you know, they get married or something, they have their kid and all that, but each one of them is personally unfulfilled. That it's like their own journey that maybe they wanted to have, they didn't get a chance to have it. And then slowly, as we see, as the film, I don't want to give too much, well, I guess everybody here has seen it.
I haven't seen it, it's great.
Oh, okay, I'll tell you. That what about me? How do I fulfill myself? What about the things I want to do? But there are ripple effects because of that.
I think that I find and have found more in my life as it goes on that there are so many women in me, and there's so many women in the women that I know. It's such an antiquated mindset that a woman is just one thing. That's never been the truth. And I think for Nina in this film, which is a tricky thing, because I at times felt so uncomfortable because she was so uncomfortable, and a really uncomfortable place to be in her heart and in her mind. And it was fun sometimes to be so twisted, but then other times it really hurt me to be involved with people that I loved so much working with, and then to be working creatively in a way that I wasn't proud of myself. I didn't feel like that was a good person. I guess it's, Olivia found it really fun and I found it really hard.
Well, I guess I think that, I think so often we as actresses, as women, are presented with this sort of fantasy version of ourselves that, you know, we're doing things that we're like proud of, or we're good, or when in fact I think most people, including women, have a huge spectrum of things inside them. I would be really shocked to hear that there wasn't one mother, or that there was one mother who hadn't once thought, what if I walked out the door? Now, you're right, that doesn't mean that you do it, but here you're presented with someone who did, and you're asked to, I hope that the movie asks you to look at the ways in which you're like her and in which you have empathy and compassion for her. And then what are you left with? And it can be uncomfortable, like you're saying, but I think it can also be really comforting. Okay, I'm not the only person who's had these thoughts, which I wish I weren't having. And it's actually all of us, you know.
Hi, I'm Peter. That's sort of what I wanted to ask, because one of the uncomfortable truths that this film shows is about motherhood, and maybe more generally about parenthood, particularly of young children. I have a 3-year-old at home. I can certainly relate. It's not as much fun as it's usually depicted and romanticized, at least not all the time. And you show this in this film. That it's hard. And I wonder if you could reflect a little bit, of maybe the actors as well, on what you wanted to show about the reality of what's it like to raise young children and to be a mother.
I wish Jessie were here
Yeah.
because Jessie's in Canada shooting a movie and stuck in her bubble. But well, I think we wanted to show both the immense, overwhelming joy and love, and I think Leda, both when she's you and when she's Jessie, is full of love and love for her children. I mean, the way on the phone when your daughter wants to hang up and like your face, okay, it's like your heart breaks for a second. That's a mom. And also to do this dangerous thing of kind of opening up truth of the degree of darkness and perversity and desperation and terror that is also included in parenthood. What do you think, Peter?
Yes, I think.
What do I think about? We are both parents of two lovely little children. I think that it was such an enormous pleasure to watch my wife really fulfill her talent. I think that's about all I have to say. Or I'll cry. But because she has, for so long people have known what an excellent actress she is. But being around her is truly inspiring. I think for all these actors, they know that she has a real eye for kind of an unconventional truth. There's the easy truth that we go around with every day, and the way that we explain things. But then there's what's actually going on. And she's unbelievably inspiring. That's about it.
I'd like to step in with one question for Maggie. Maggie, when we saw the film for the selection, what struck us was how bold. I'm here. It's Julia. I'm like,
it's so funny, the sound comes
under
from there.
Yeah, sorry. No, but one thing that really struck us is how confident, self-assured were the choices in the adaptation and the directorial choices. Can you talk a little bit about the process of writing the script and choosing and making those choices? Because it's for a first film, it's quite incredible. In terms of adapting the book and then taking it not to it,
Well, I actually was surprised to find that adapting a book into a screenplay is a similar muscle to being an actor, having a text, and having to look at the text and say, what is the essence of this piece of writing? Why is this in the movie? And also, why is it in the movie in relation to me? You can imagine how actors are doing that all the time. And so I guess I found both that was a similar exercise. Okay, here's a section of the book. Maybe it's a scene where two people are eating octopus, although that's not in the book, but something like that. And yet, what's the purpose of it? What is it really about? So that's how I went about the adaptation. And also, I guess, at first, I really followed the structure of the book. I held the book with me. I kind of moved section to section to section, like a very good student, I think, at first, in a way. And then there came a point where it got wilder. And that's when it started to really come alive. And weirdly, that happened when I would sort of, where's the book? I'd lost it in my office, around the same time that Ferrante wrote that Guardian piece that I sent you, where she basically said in the Guardian, she hoped that I don't know her, of course. We've exchanged a few really interesting, cherished emails, but she just sort of hoped into the universe that I was making it my own. Like she says in this Guardian piece, I hope, difficult as it might be for her to let go of what her book was, that I make it mine. And so that really also was kind of when it started to get hot for me.
Hi, Yasmin for Discussing Film. Olivia, Leda is very much a two-part character with the past and present versions of herself. As actors, how much did you and Jesse have to collaborate to make that character really cohesive?
We didn't really. She was at the beginning. We overlapped, drank quite a lot, chatted in the evenings, and then I was filming after her. We just did, because Jesse and I are friends anyway, so we would text each other going, what accent are you doing? And how, so it was kind of, and I was worried, Maggie going, how similar do we need to be? Maggie went, doesn't matter. And so we just sort of, we worked out roughly where we came from, and then we just, as any woman anyway, any man, any person changes from, 20 to 30 to 40 to 50, everyone changes, so it didn't matter too much, I don't think. And there's a good dollop of artistic license in anything. So Jesse, both leaders are feeling similar things. They've had different lives. When I turned up, I'd had more life than Jesse'd had, and so it didn't really matter, I don't think. I adore Jessie. So whatever she does is good in my book.
But also, they've seen it and you haven't. But it's kind of amazing how...
You might be completely different for all I know.
No, at least for me, that was a question for me. That was a real risk and a real kind of experiment going in. Here are two totally fully formed actresses who are different people. It's not like you have a child who's 8 years old and then they're Olivia. These are two different people. And so there's a really kind of poetic, interesting, artistic offering to say, but we're asking you to believe that they're not. And I think it's kind of amazing what happened, to imagine that this woman goes from being Jessie to being you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You were very cool about that. I did like that.
Sorry. Hi, Helen Barlow for the Australian newspaper. Oh, sorry. Maggie, Peter just spoke about you. Could you speak about working with him and why you cast him? And obviously you're from a family of filmmakers. Was it inevitable that you would direct one day, given your parents? And will you work with Jake? Will you direct Jake one day?
I don't think directing is inevitable. I think it takes a lot of uphill battles, I think. But Peter, to be completely honest, there was a moment when I thought, maybe it's not a great idea to have Peter play the object of desire with a exquisite, intelligent, gorgeous young actress. And I felt that way for, I don't know, maybe like 6 weeks. And then something just exploded in my mind and I went, you're so bourgeois. Peter and I have been together since I was 23. And I know he loves me. And I thought, there isn't anyone who could play that part like him. And so let's go. And Jessie really, from the moment I had a Zoom call with her, I was like, that woman is a sister. And I think, Peter did exactly what I imagined he was going to do. He surprised me at every moment. He blew the lid off of that character I wrote. It became a living, breathing, like all of these incredible people, it was everything I wanted it to be and beyond my wildest imagination. And I think Peter and Jessie and I together say something honest about love and hunger, and so there's not a moment of me that would have done it any different. Yeah. And Alba is the same. Alba came in for 2 days. We just thought, I thought maybe I'll just send it to her. She was my dream, to play this cameo in the movie. I thought, what's the worst that happens? She says no, and I feel disappointed. I can handle it. But then she came like a lightning bolt into our film for 2 days, and, again, completely blew my mind. Oh, right. Might I direct Jake? Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to.
Alba, why did you say yes? It's a small part. What made you say I want to do it? And
because it's a great, wonderful, special director, and the way she asked me to do it was unbelievable. So I was like, yes, I want to do it. And it was the most beautiful things happened to me last year. So I was very happy.
Maria Rita Graziani, agenzia di Stampa Dire. Volevo fare una domanda alla regista sul rapporto che hai avuto con la Ferrante, se l'ha sentita, insomma, se vi siete parlate, vi siete confrontate, come è andato il primo incontro e se vedrà o ha visto il film. E poi un'altra domanda sulla condizione femminile. Nel film la protagonista è anche frustrata perché lavorativamente non riesce ad emergere a causa, insomma, dei figli. Quanto rispecchia la situazione attuale delle donne e anche nel mondo del cinema, quanto è difficile per una donna essere regista? Grazie.
Okay, that's a lot of questions. First of all, Ferrante, I just keep being so tempted to tell everybody I know who she is, but I don't. And maybe I'll try that somewhere else. No, I don't know who she is, but we spoke only through letters. And like I said, they're really cherished communications. I wrote her a letter first to petition her for the rights to the book, and also said I wanted to direct it, and she responded and gave us the rights, but said the contract is void if you don't direct it, which I found really scary, because I guess in some ways I thought I'll go step by step, I'll do the adaptation and I'll see how it feels. But I also took it as this kind of cosmic vote of confidence from across the universe, from, because I don't know who she is. And then the Guardian letter, and then she read the script, and she gave me, she read the script, and she, again, really supported me, like a kind of, I don't know, electricity from somewhere in the world. But she gave me a couple of notes, which I really liked on the script. One of them was to take out the sex scene, which I did.
Oh, thank God.
But not before we shot it. But really the main one, which I really also agreed with, which I think Olivia will, I imagine you'll agree with me too, was she said it's really important that Leda not be crazy. And I really, really felt the same way, because if Leda's crazy and she's some crazy lady who left her kids, well, fine, who cares? We indict her, we feel good about ourselves and what good mamas we are, and we move on. But if she's not crazy and we love her and care about her and we relate to her, then all of a sudden we're asked to look at the little streaks of similarity between the pain that she's going through and the pain that we've gone through. I don't know what you think about that, but.
Yes, no, I'm very grateful that she wasn't depicted as someone with madness. Yeah, because that's what I loved about it, is that we all sometimes imagine, oh, do you know, it's a bit much. I haven't slept. I could just fuck off for a week. And talking to my friends, male and female, everyone's thought that. And she sort of heroically actually did it. Mm-hmm. And they use the word heroically, well, it's a difficult word to use for it, but she isn't crazy. She is very. There are a lot of things going on in her world, and the way Maggie depicted her, it's
you do understand why she's done it, even though it was difficult. So yeah, I loved the way she was depicted by you. Yeah.
And you.
Well, I just said the words. So.
There was a question. Question there.
Hello. We've heard why you wanted the actors in this incredible cast. Having somebody even as renowned as Maggie is as an actress, to have her do her first directing, what made each of you decide, I'm going to jump in here with her?
I find Maggie and I had a meeting in New York. We had like a late lunch one day. And I think we had met once before, kind of at like a party. I've always been just totally in love with her work. And when I met her and spoke to her, I was like really, I find her, she really catches me off guard all the time in a way that makes me want to evolve as a person and as an actress. And that is something that I find really rare in making movies now. I think that used to be a more common situation where you had this quite special bond with your director and you felt like you could unzip and you were safe. And I felt both terrified and very safe at the same time with Maggie the whole time. And that was like from the beginning. And I find her to be, like Peter said, speaking a truth that no one is maybe speaking and seeing things that no one is seeing in a way where I want more of it. And I wanted, you know, it was like months after our first meeting that she wanted to see me again. So I just thought that wasn't going to happen. But it's the kind of relationship, artistic, creative collaboration that is of dreams. It's something that I can feel and I can like smell and taste the experience and working with her, and I think it'll be like that forever. It's extremely visceral.
I was terrified when I first met Maggie because I was completely in love with her and everything she'd done, and in one of thousands of things, but Secretary was one of the sexiest things I'd ever seen. And then I wanted to be the actress Maggie is. So I have a sort of a gut feeling, but I don't have any cerebral things. But Maggie has everything. And so when we first met, she was talking quite intelligently, and I went, oh no, this is never going to work. So then we got a little bit drunk, and then it was much easier.
Not just a little bit drunk. I actually left that meeting and went home and got in bed and went to sleep.
And that was lunchtime, not together. And then I realised this would be fine because I can just be honest. Maggie is nothing but, if not completely honest at all times. And I was able to go, I didn't know what you meant. I'm sorry, I didn't understand that literary reference.
Some of the notes were...
Some of them were... Am I allowed to say that my favourite hilarious
Sure,
one?
go ahead, fine.
So,
no, please don't.
No,
Actually,
I won't. We'll say that.
Jesse and I, we were talking in a different language.
Yeah. But Jessie understood what you were talking about.
She did, but
I didn't have a clue.
had to...
But then I just learnt to feel it, and Maggie understood that I couldn't get the literary references that she had, and then we really found our way, and and wine helped enormously. So I just wanted to be Maggie, really, and eventually I understood what she was talking about eventually.
Yeah, I think we were kind of ESPing. We would talk up here.
Yeah.
But again, I think that's kind of English. I had to
Is it?
Yeah, no, I love the hat. It's quite nice. But
Maggie had to witness almost a 20-minute discussion between me and lovely Ed, the wardrobe designer, who's English. And he said, I was thinking about this hat. I went, oh no, that's a lovely hat. And it was 20 minutes before it was quite clear that I fucking hated the hat. But neither of us could say that. And Maggie just watched and went, oh my God. Take off the fucking hat. So we had to work out, yes, that Maggie just had to be correct and I had to understand it. And
No, I think we talked up here, but
yeah.
then we were having a kind of other conversation down here.
It all worked out.
Yeah. I liked it a lot.
I did too. I loved it.
Maggie, I have a question here. Can you talk a little bit about the stylistic choices, the visuals, the style that you wanted to create for the film?
Yeah. It's interesting. I learned, I keep hearing from people, this is something I find really interesting visually. I keep hearing from people that, oh, you're so close with everybody. And it's true, there are times when I'm so close on Dakota in a scene that also has Dagmara, who plays Callie, that you don't even see Callie in the scene because she isn't, it's just a scene about them. So I kept getting that note, you're so close, I'd love to see where you are more, early on when I was showing the movie around. And so I watched the film with this in mind. And in fact, there are many wide shots in the film. And right away in the beginning, many. And I just found that really interesting. I thought, somehow it's being perceived as you're always inside their minds, always inside her mind. Because I think you are always inside her mind, whether you're wide or you're close. And I think that's interesting that it feels that way visually, even though it actually isn't. I think because working with lenses and a camera was new for me. It's the same way I worked on sound design. It's the same way I worked on editing. I had very little experience with that. And so I went entirely from my unconscious. I just went, that's in our vibration, and that isn't. And so Olivia says I was really intellectual in our meeting, but
sorry.
but I couldn't, in terms of that kind of, I couldn't tell you really why. Maybe one day I'll be able to, why I said, I love a 65 there, and
But that's what's so impressive. For someone who's never directed, every single decision, watching, no, those umbrellas are the wrong colour, they need to be a bit more to the left. What? How do you know that? But every single moment that happened, she was all over it, knew everything. It was like it was weirdly coming out your fingertips. You knew exactly what you were doing. I'd have been, I've been awful. I'm never going to direct.
You can direct my brother.
I don't think he'd like that.
The one last is been waiting, and then we have to close.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could maybe reflect a little on the class dynamics in the film, because it's an important part of the story that some of the characters have high education and some don't. And it comes from the book, of course. But you sort of make it a little bit more American. You have a few references to what's going on in the world right now. And it's a hard thing to pull off, because it can come across as a little bit snobby about people who are not as well educated. I mean, how do you... what was your approach to the whole class dynamics of the story?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, in the book, and I just made this true, and I just didn't take a lot of energy explaining it, although there is some. Leda doesn't come from money at all. But she's educated herself. That's what the story is in The Lost Daughter. So it isn't necessarily, the level of education isn't about class in the book. But I think just like in many of Ferrante's books, education is a kind of way to change your past. And there is a moment where Leda says, my mother didn't finish high school, and I don't think, but you're gonna have to tell me, to me, I don't think it comes off as snobby, because we know that Leda is not someone who had everything handed to her. She's somebody who, I mean, we knew it when we made it. We say, where are you from? Fancy. No, it's not fancy, In the book, it's much more explicit, and I just took the knowledge of who I thought she was and put that into into the filmmaking, but it, you know, it's just not totally explicit.
This could have been solved if.
Well, I have to close here because we ran out of time. Thank you so much for, to our guests, and thank you for the film.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was very good to talk to you.
You don't.
Okay, ladies and